Hey, what's going on, guys? Real excited about today's podcast. I got my man John Kelly in the place. How are you, sir?
Doing very well.
So, John Kelly currently holds a position of branch manager at Cross County Mortgage. Repeated success in the financial service industry. He's been doing it for almost 25 years. I know him personally. I've worked with him. His work ethic is undeniable, and that's what this show's about. That's why he's here. What's up, brother?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yes,
really appreciate it.
Of course. It's long overdue. So, first of all, how you feeling? I know you just unfortunately had a bad accident the day of my event, and we were looking forward to it. And I didn't know it was as bad as it was. I mean, you just got off crutches recently, right? So tell me about it. What happened exactly?
My knee came out. I was riding my bike. I mean, I could have felt like this 1,000 times and been totally fine. I was riding my bike down the hill in the rain by Fort Totten Park in Queens. Took a nasty fall, hit the ground. I looked down. I heard the pop. My knee was out of the socket sideways. Completely dislocated. Grotesque. By the grace of God, the EMT and FDNY Training Center is in Fort Totten Park.
I know exactly where that is. I used to deliver mail in Bayside. Yeah.
I waved to the guy because there's a booth there with a fireman in it, and he's just looking at, okay, some idiot who fell off his bike, and I'm waving aggressively. He comes over and goes, oh my God! He saw the light because it was grotesque. These guys, I say within 60 seconds, the EMT and the old school, firemen, the guys that have been doing this for like 25 plus years, like, buddy, we're not going to bullshit you, man. This is bad. And they put me in a cast. So within 60 seconds of the time that I fell, they had me in an orange cast, but they snapped my leg right back into the socket.
So did that help? If they would have took long, could things have been worse?
I think it would have been worse, yeah.
Okay.
And I think it was a blessing. And it's funny because they stabilized the injury instantly. And God forbid, because I could have been 100 yards in either direction and been lying there for half an hour. You know what I mean? And so I got, for a horrible situation, I was very lucky. The other thing is, I'm not a Queens guy. I'm a Bronx guy. I just happen to live in Queens because my wife is from Queens. So they asked me, what hospital you want to go to? I'm like, I don't know any hospital.
Jacoby.
Yeah, exactly. Except for the hospital that my kids were born in,
Right.
which is Manhasset.
Right.
So I tell them Manhasset, and these guys, it happened in Queens. Not supposed to take me to Long Island, but they did anyway. Just solid guys. And it just so happened that the guy who did my surgery is like the best guy in the tri-state area for that surgery, and he happens to be at that hospital. So sometimes, a bad situation. It was a horrible situation. As you know, I lost almost 30 pounds. I got a staph infection that was like, if that infection continued, the worst case scenario is like you could die from that infection, not to be over dramatic, or you could have your leg amputated. So thank God, all went well, but it was pretty much like everything that could go wrong went wrong. At the same time, I had a lot of positive blessings along the way. The fire department was right there. They took me to the best hospital. I had the best surgeon. So
And this is just a normal bike ride, like.
Dude, let me tell you.
Like you're not doing any tricks. You're not going.
I bought the bike 3 weeks earlier. I used to ride a bike my whole life. We used to ride bikes as kids through the South Bronx, through Harlem at night, all the way down the Staten Island Ferry, and go to Staten Island on bikes at 12 years old. I bought the bike 3 weeks earlier.
You was on endos or anything like that?
I wish everybody was like, what kind of bike you got? A Harley? Like, no, it's a Trek.
A Schwinn.
So I wish there was a more. I was like,
I have a
Trek
too. That's funny.
And it was funny because I just bought the bike like 3 weeks earlier. And so it was because I was pushing 260. I'm like, I got to get a bike. I got to lose weight. Blah 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 blah. And I got in a nice routine. I was doing it first thing in the morning every morning because it was like my little. You know how crazy our lives can be sometimes. So it was like my time because my mind is always going, but like it's my time to talk to myself. And it was fantastic. I loved it. 3 weeks into it, bang, I had that accident.
Did the bike get fucked up?
The bike does not have a scratch on it. That's the first thing my wife asked him. Like, the bike is fine. She's like, I'm throwing it in the garbage. I'm like, that bike cost me $1,000. Don't touch it. So not a scratch.
Okay.
Go figure.
So I'm glad you're better.
Thank you, brother.
And so let's talk about the Bronx. Let's talk about growing up. I know people say the Bronx, but where you grew up is a little different. Like we're in the Bronx now at my house in Pelham Bay. It's a little different than your part of the Bronx.
Indeed.
So
I'm
let's talk
from
about that.
168th Street, Nelson Avenue, Highbridge. Sacred Heart was my parish, and definitely a rough neighborhood. We moved out of there when I was a young kid, but my older brothers were all raised there. They moved, so I was like 3 or 4 years old, but my older brothers were like 15 or 16. From there, we moved a little bit further north to University Avenue.
Was it like Irish people moved there? Like, what is it happenstance?
It used to be,
Was it
no,
family
Highbridge
there?
was an all-Irish community
Okay.
once upon a time. Literally like 100%. Like you get off the boat from Ireland, you move to Highbridge. And my father was one of those old-school, hard-headed Irish guys. And, he's lived two places entirely. The building that we lived in as a kid was the building he lived in as a kid. You know what I mean? So his father came here from Ireland, got an apartment in that building, and that's it. Planted our flag, we're not leaving.
Okay.
And then eventually we moved to University Avenue, which also eventually became a horrible neighborhood. The crack epidemic, the late 70s, early 80s, so I lived through all of that. And at the same time, though, I have these conversations with all my childhood friends. We really feel like we had the best childhood, but thank God You know, there's like, think about it. You have kids. How scared are you all the time of just minimal stuff?
Of course.
And so, you know, thank God, you know, in the scheme of things, we all ended up okay for the most part. So, you know, I look, you know, and that's just how my brain kind of works, truthfully, is, you know, 1,000 negative things can happen to me. Even my accident, I'm like, thank God the firemen were there. Thank God I had the best surgeon. My brain is just wired for whatever reason. I mean, I didn't try to make this happen. I just think the circumstances of my life, either you find the positive in something, or you know, you're suffering.
And I love that because I say that all the time. You're gonna deal with stuff. It's how you deal with it. Everybody deals with stuff,
of course,
right? And some people just don't handle it well. Yeah. And those are the people, like your accident could be, why me? And and you did what you had to do. You dealt with it, and now you're back to work, right?
Exactly.
And other people could have used it as a crutch. Any situation in life.
Let me get permanent disability. I'm never going to be the same.
Of course.
I didn't even want to tell anybody it happened because I didn't want it to. Like, even my wife, you know, like 3 or 4 days later, my wife's like, I don't understand what the problem is. You just have a broken leg because her good friend is a nurse. I didn't even tell my wife because I have what's called a tibia patella fracture, which is my knee snapped in half. But I just told my wife my leg broke because it seemed like a lot less. So 4 days into it, she's like, I don't understand what the big deal is. They still have you on morphine. You're going to have the surgery, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, sweetheart, let me explain to you what happened. Oh, my God. But if I would have told her the day of, I couldn't handle that stress with everything I have going on. So I even downplayed it to my own family just so it would be easier for me to deal with everything going on. Got
it. So you grow up in this neighborhood, and how does did you go to college? Was school?
Yeah. So basically, I grew up in that neighborhood. I always say I had my neighborhood friends and I had my high school friends because I went to Cardinal Spellman. So Cardinal Spellman to me was like, wow, you know, and it was like, you know, just kids from like this neighborhood in Morris Park. But I was like, wow, this is money. Like to me, that was like, these people are rich, and it was like a very, you know, interesting thing because, you know, you would never consider anything in the Bronx rich. But for me, it was like a whole new awakening. It was so I always had like, I always joke and say I have a double life. Meaning I have kids that I grew up with from my street that are like hardcore bad guys. Unfortunately, you know, good guys, and we got along well, and we were great friends. But our paths went different ways, thank God. And then I also had my high school friends, and you know, unfortunately for me as well, is like I have a lot of long-term friends, guys I've been friends with 30, 40 years, and it's a very unique bunch of characters.
Yes.
And I like that about me because I also think that's why in life, in present day, I really relate to kind of everybody. You know, I was at my wife's Christmas party 2 weeks ago, and the owner of her company, he's a self-made billionaire. And, you know, as she's introducing him to me, she's like, you know, kind of giving me the, you know, don't be crazy, you know, because I'm a little crazy. And within 60 seconds, she's like, I had 4 conversations with the guy. We spoke all night. She's like, I don't understand. You hit it off with that guy.
I think that's kind of a Bronx thing because I feel like I have that. Mm-hmm. You can talk to the street guys, but then you can talk to the business guys too.
Exactly.
We blend, right?
Right. And I think it's a gift because a lot of people don't have that. And it's funny because I just think growing up the way we did, you have to learn quickly to get along with it. You know, you basically it's either you live in a little bubble or, you know, I know you used to play basketball in the Marble Hill Projects. Me too. You know what I mean? Like a lot of white kids ain't going to Marble Hill Projects to play basketball. You know, at the same time, it's like that I'm hanging out in Country Club at Pelham Bay Park. So at a very early age, I had a very, you know, diverse, unique background.
And that's what we talk about with our kids. Even though we're happy they're protected, sometimes that stuff's going to come, and are they going to be able to deal with it? And that's what you need to worry about, right?
Yeah. It's funny because you know, you don't want to, you want to protect them, and at the same time
you got to deal with some stuff. It's going to come.
It's going to come. It's not a question of if. It's a question of when.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about work and so you start out on Wall Street. Is that your first job or your first serious job?
Well, I started working at like 11 years old. My first job was I delivered chopped meat. I delivered meat. I worked in a butcher shop all over the Bronx. But one of my stops was Marble Hill Projects. And it was funny because every time I would leave Marble Hill Projects, I always tell the story, they would try to rob me every single time. So, I mean, it
started to be funny.
So, I mean, I'm like in 7th grade at the time. So it's like, you know, I'm walking into the projects. They all see me with all of these bags, and they know I'm going to come out with money. And I never got robbed, thank God. But that was my first job. 6 or 8 months into that, the guy who was the butcher got arrested, jammed up on something. So I actually was a full-blown butcher in like 8th grade. And nowadays they don't even have butchers like that because the meat is completely broken down. But if you ever watch the old Rocky movies, when you see the guy, that's what I did still in grammar school. So that was my first job.
Okay.
Worked all throughout high school. Basically worked like 40-hour a week in high school. Unfortunately, I couldn't play sports, you know, because I work so much.
Are you working because you want to work? Is it your fault? I remember my father literally taking me, telling me I needed to get a job. Was it forced into you from your dad?
Here's the deal I had with my father. Most of my siblings went to public school. My dad was like, I'll pay for Spelman. Here's the deal. I'm paying for Spelman. That's it. You're on your own. Meaning clothes, food, bus fare, entertainment, whatever, that's on you, and that was our deal. And that's why I started working at such an early age. And at Spelman, we didn't have uniforms. You had to wear dress clothes. So I couldn't get away with like one pair of pants and like a uniform, which would have been easy because you have to wear you have to dress up 5 days a week. So I basically worked so I wouldn't be embarrassed of wearing, shitty clothes.
Okay.
I mean, I never really told anybody
Right.
that before, but that's just the truth. Like, insecurity, like, dude, I need clothes. And so
You want things in life,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
You got to work for them.
And my father,
Yeah.
he always used to say, he had a couple of catchphrases. My father never really sat me down and taught me anything about life, but he would have key phrases. One of them was, Dad, I need this, get a job. And, something bad would happen, like, that's the breaks. There was never any, oh my God, that sucks. It was like, that's fucking life, son. Deal with it. You know what I mean? How are you going to react? And that was the message from like 5, 6, 7 years old. And as a kid, I never liked it. But now as a man, I realized, wow, my dad made me a man.
Yeah, I swear. I look back now, and when you're a kid, you're like, and now when you get older, the respect you have for those old school immigrants, right? They made your life easier, you know, and they broke their ass for you.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, he didn't go to your Little League games or whatever. I'm not.
Yeah.
It's all right. He
Yeah,
he helped
exactly.
me. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I didn't need him to see me lighting people up on the court. I was gonna do it anyway. I'll just tell him about it. So, all right. So now after the butcher, you get into the stock. Is it when do you get into the
Once I
financial?
go to high school, I go to college. I went to Lehman College and I went to Manhattan College. I wasted 5 years of my life in college. I got a degree in economics. I went to grad school for half a semester because I was already working. When I was in college, I was working 50 or 60 hours a week. So I already had my own apartment when I was in college. I was already independent. And then what happened was I took I believe it's called your GMAT. And in the process of doing my GMAT, this is a funny story. It's at Fordham University. They tell you after you finish a certain section, you can't go back. You go on to the next section. So I'd finished the next section, and I knew I didn't do like 3 or 4 of the last questions. So I went back to the other section prior, and they took my GMAT away from me. I mean, literally. There's a couple of times in my life when I've almost gone completely ballistic. That was one of them. So that was it. I was done with grad school. I had a couple of job interviews lined up. It came down to Pepsi Cola, which was like a $35,000 a year job, driving like an electric blue Reliant K and wearing a Pepsi shirt, going through Harlem and like being like a Pepsi distributor, or going to work on Wall Street, working twice the hours and making $200 a week. I pulled up to the job interview on Wall Street. Outside in the parking lot was like, I don't know, conservatively $3 or $4 million worth of cars. The oldest guy in there was like 30 years old. Sign me up.
Did you know as a kid you were going to be good at sales, or was this
No,
really?
no, not at all. But the funny thing is, I realized quickly because I was always the kid, and I'm sure you were the same way. You grew up in the Bronx. We used to call it Snapfest. Like there's always like 2 or 3 kids. You don't want to get into a snap fight with that kid because they'll destroy you.
Yeah.
And I was that kid, like just quick and fast and rebuttals. And it was funny because I remember as soon as I got into that business, they would give these big meetings, and they would always say the guy who's going to do very well in this business is the street kid who's witty. And my whole life, I was like always insecure because I was that street kid. And now the place I worked at, it was in Westchester, and they were like, this kid's from Briarcliff Manor, and this kid is from Armonk. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I had an insecurity. I'm not gonna lie about it. And at the same time, as soon as I got in there, I'm like. These kids can't fuck with me. Right. Excuse my language. And I realized that immediately.
I always felt that as a kid when you used to go places and you were from the Bronx, like you had a little edge on them, right? Now, I never even looked at it as a handicap. I looked at it as an edge.
I came and think of it as a handicap because it's like these people that come from wealthy families and they're well-to-do and they have a
I could see it in that way, yeah.
And then the other thing I loved about it as well, in many ways, sales was like sports because it doesn't matter who your dad knows, bro. Do you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, you and I are competing, and I just do this better than you. No matter what, the numbers don't lie. Exactly. You don't like me. The boss doesn't like me. At the end of the day, the guy who produces the most wins.
So do you think? Because sometimes I wonder about this. Because obviously I'm in real estate and you're in mortgages now, and there's the guy that's talented on the phone, and then there's the guy who just makes more calls. Is it a combination of both, or you think the guy who works harder?
I was both. I was very talented, not to sound cocky, but extremely talented. But I've never not been the hardest working guy. Okay. I've always been the hardest working guy ever in any business I've been in. That's
a deadly combination when you're doing both, right?
And let me tell you, though, I will say this: I've never been lucky, and so I've always been very talented. I've always there's not one person that knows me that would say, "Oh, he's the hardest working guy you're ever going to meet in your life." So it's not like some guys will say that other people might have a different opinion. There's not one person who knows me that would say otherwise. But at the same time, I've been in situations where working on Wall Street, where it's like this guy is a complete loser. He's lazy. He has no talent, but he landed a whale, and he's making $100,000 a month, and he's incompetent, stupid, and useless. And I was just never that guy who got lucky. But in a way, that was a good thing because I never took my foot off the gas pedal.
But the people who land the well, they eventually fade out.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. But it's nice to make a couple $100,000 a month for 6 months, and fade out. But for me, I was never lucky. And I think the fact that I was never lucky was always something that instilled in me. Like even my accident right now. You know, I was having this conversation earlier. I had a fantastic year, even though I finished off the year horribly because of the last 3 months. But I had a fantastic year because I came out of the gates January 1 like a savage beast animal. And that was just, you know, my work ethic has always been instilled in me. And, you know, it is what it is.
Do you set yearly goals, or do you? So how does that come to be?
You know, it's funny because I really should work more on my goals, and I do have yearly goals that I write out. It's funny. Last year, what I did with a bunch of agents, I got them the Grant Cardone book, your goal work setting book,
yes.
the 10X book.
You got me one.
Yeah, and I handed them out, and I literally, I wouldn't say I wrote it every day, but I wrote it, I'd say most of the days of the year, and it definitely helped. But the truth is, like, I'm just that guy that just gets up every morning, rains, you know, no matter what's going on in my life, it's like I put my pants on and it's just boom, go.
Okay.
Angry, mad, upset, disaster here. No matter what's going on, like I just think to myself, if you just do what you got to do, everything's gonna be all right.
And now is it just from when you remember what you said when you were younger, you just wanted to get nice pants? Is it now the same thing driving you? Is it your kids? Is it what's driving you now?
It's funny you say that because I always worked very hard, and I was always used to think like there's not another level. And then I got kids, and I was like, wow, you know. And I'm old. I just turned 48. I know you did as well. And I got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and it's like, you know. So for me, and until you have children, you don't know about that extra level. And then once you have kids, you realize like, you know, that's the extra push for me anyway. I know there's guys our age that
definitely
care less about their kids.
Yeah.
You know, like they don't work, so their ex-wives can't take more child support. I mean, it's unfortunately you live in a world like that. But for me, my kids are definitely, you know, if that's not enough leverage for you to get going, then that's nothing is.
Yep. So you're on Wall Street. Is it going well? How does that turn into mortgages? You want to like go into that?
Just a quick story. Well, that's a quick version of a long story. I go to Wall Street. The way that business worked is you have to cold call for a guy for 6 months. Once you cold call for 6 months, they give you your books to study for your test. You then
cold
pass
call.
your test.
You're calling. In other words, you're calling leads.
I'm calling Dun & Bradstreet, essentially the phone book. But everybody in that particular phone book has a business that does over $1 million a year in business. And right out of the bat, you know who the guys are going to be that are going to make money, because even the cold call, like it was basically survival of the fittest. What they would do is, it was an office of like 140 dudes. Let's say there was 90 cold callers. They'd only have 75 chairs. So if you got there late, you don't get a chair. You got to call for 12 hours that day with no chair. Like, you'd go to jail for this right now. Like, if the type of way we worked, it would be illegal.
Right.
And the amount of hours we worked to get paid $200 a week, it would be illegal. And so ultimately, you know, fistfights would break out in the office because a guy would show up 15 minutes late and somebody's sitting in the seat that he usually sits in, and they wouldn't break up the fistfight either. It was like they wanted to create animals.
Right, I got
and the ironic thing is,
only the strong survive, right? So,
yeah, I mean, it's kind of disgusting, and it was funny because I always say, like, when I was a kid growing up, the only people who had money were the bad guys. And I would never be a bad guy. It's not something in me. And then I go to work on Wall Street. I'm like, these guys are the biggest savages ever. They make the drug dealers look like Boy Scouts, you know? And so that was an awakening. And so basically, you know, I passed my test. I opened up a bunch of accounts for my my broker. You're supposed to open 30. I opened 28, and I opened them in 30 days. And off of those 28 accounts, that month he did $106,000. So he made $106,000.
So you basically, when you say open the account, you did the whole thing, and then he just got paid, or,
no, what
or you
happens is
hand it
I
off?
open-
You set the appointment, or
Here's how it goes. I call a complete stranger. Never spoken to him before.
Okay.
Actually, somebody called him to get a lead out of him. Hey, Mr. Jones, how are you? This is John Kelly.
but this is somebody in the market already.
Somebody in the market already.
Right.
So the
So
first
that's why
call
you
is
got the lead.
yes. The
Yeah.
first call is to determine, do you own over 6 figures in the? You have over 6 figures in stock. Once he says yes, we send him out a little booklet. We call him back 2 or 3 weeks later. 2 or 3 weeks later, I call him back. One phone call. I must get him to buy on that one phone call at least $5,000 to $10,000 worth of stock. If he doesn't buy on that call, you rip up the lead, you throw him in the garbage. You never call him back again, ever. So I open.
So this is different than real estate, where you're nurturing. Like
It's
a FISBO,
completely
you
different.
build a relationship. You could
Completely
call for
different.
3 months, 4 months, and
Completely
then
different.
Okay.
Because these guys are whales. You call a guy
it's either hit or
10
miss.
grand.
It's
is
hit
like,
or miss.
10
Either
grand
you
is dinner.
Right.
You know what I mean? If he can't commit to 10 grand on one phone
Right.
call, then he's not the guy for
But
you.
whose fault is that? You're not good enough to convert, because he's good. Like you said, he's going to play, right? It's just
Well, the thing is also, keep in mind, it's like getting you at work. You know, there could be a day where you have 5 minutes
day.
worth of free
Okay.
time. There could be another day where you have 20 disasters. But ultimately, the more talent, like the whole conversation would start with, I don't got time for this. I'm hanging up the phone. Goodbye. Boom. And that would be the start. And so I closed 28 of those in 30 days. My broker then generated that the next month. So he then would second trade them, meaning now that they bought stock, you call them back, you do a second trade. You get to buy another
which is
stock.
easier once.
Well, the second trade is 10 times easier because you've already established a relationship. He's already sent you money. He already knows who you are and who your company is. So off of that, my broker made $106,000. Okay, at the time, I had eviction notices on my door because I didn't make money from that. This is like 14 months.
So you're living downtown.
At the time, I'm still living in the Bronx.
Okay.
I'm living by myself. I live on Van Cortlandt Park South.
How old are you?
I'm like 24 years old.
Okay.
They made you think you're going to make money 6 months in. It's not 6 months in. 6 months till I got my books. I passed my test like 2 months after that. How to open those accounts. And then after I opened those accounts, what happened was I still opened accounts, but they never told me I had a second trade.
But is it bullshit, or you can, because a lot of young kids end up making a lot of money. So the dream that they're telling you can really happen.
Yeah, I mean, I did, so basically it took me about, say, 16 months. And I tell the story all the time. I did one trade, so now mind you, 16 months, I'm starving. I probably made 12 grand the year before, 11 grand the year before that. And prior to that, when I was a guy who had 5 jobs, I was making like $35,000, $40,000 a year. So I really had to take a dramatic cut in pay. I had my own apartment, whatever. I had to give up my car. So now, on one call, I do a trade that makes me $26,000. Here's what I did. This is a great story. So now they always say, don't count your money until the check comes in. So my client sent in a check for $26,000.
You bought a fat gold rope?
Better than that. I wish I was that stupid. I wish I was only that stupid. I immediately booked a trip to go to Florida because a good friend of mine, Puerto Rican girl from the Bronx, I grew up with, lived in Florida. She knew the struggle I was
just
going
to
through.
Celebrate this hit? Or you were just frustrated? You've been working so long.
Guy,
I need this.
Guy, I mean, I was shoplifting lunch. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was a place downtown. We called it Budget. It was a buffet. I'd go in and eat $12 worth of food before I got to the register and buy a piece of bread for 75 cents. True story.
Okay.
So now I make that trade for $26,000. The check comes in. I book a flight to Florida. We happen to have a sales contest that month as well. And the sales contest was for $5,000. So I won 5 G's. My boss is going to write me a check for 5 G's. I'm like, brother, you can't give me a check because my bank account is negative $800.
It's going to eat it up, yeah.
So do me a favor, give me the 5,000 cash.
Right.
This 26 G's I'll be getting paid in a couple of weeks. I'll take care of the $800 then. Same guy lends me his gold Rolex. I go to Barney's. I buy a pair of black suede Gucci loafers down in Miami. I got $5 grand in my pocket. I got another $25,000 gold
24
Rolex.
years old.
24 years old. The Gucci loafers, and I'm sitting on South Beach. I'm the man. I made it. You know what I'm saying? I was living on Fort Moore a couple of years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? Not a pot to piss in a window to throw it out of. I remember as clear as day. It was a Friday. I'm sitting there with her. I'm on Collins Avenue. Big shot.
Who's her? A friend?
My friend Liza lives in Florida. The phone rings, and they're like, JK. I'm like, what's up, buddy? Like, we got a problem. I'm like, what happened? Like, his check bounced. The stock that you bought him at, let's say $12, I forget the details of, let's say $12 a share, is down to $9.5.
Oh shit!
So not only did you not make the $26,000, but now the stock is down. I'm responsible for the difference. So basically, the stock is down. And
so this I was gonna say maybe he had a chance now to get it cheaper if he cleared the check. It doesn't work that way. No, it doesn't
work that way. It's not. You buy. It's like, oh, I bought a house in September. It's cheaper a year from now. Let's resell it and do it all over again. It doesn't work that way. The stock had gone down, and now it was like a $12,000 hit. So not only did I not make the $26,000. But now I owe my company like 10 or 12 grand. So it wasn't a $40,000 hit completely.
And you get this information while you're on.
As I'm sitting on Collins Avenue with the $5 grand in my pocket. I didn't tell my friend because that's how I do, man. The way I deal with my shit is I just deal with it. She's like, "You okay? I'm fine." And I'm sitting there,
order another round.
Literally sick to my stomach. But I'm like, you know what? I've been killing myself for a year and a half. Fuck it. I'm gonna enjoy my weekend, man. You know what I mean? This is it. And maybe I go back to the business on Monday and I'm out of the business. It could happen. I mean, that's
I wouldn't have been able to fucking think straight, dude. I would have wanted to fucking hit, but laid on the fucking.
It was tough. So here's the best part of the story. I get back to the office on Monday. What happened was they called the guy once they realized the check bounced, which was Friday day. The guy, there was some kind of error with his account. So what he did was he sent a wire Friday afternoon. They knew he sent the wire. The wire they just didn't want to tell me.
Balls. Yeah.
So on Monday, I get into the office and I made the $26,000.
Nice.
So the point is, but I always tell a lot of people, guys in sales, this story because you never ever count your money until the check clears.
Listen. I've had a deal in real estate, and I tell people this all the time. I rented an apartment. I'll never forget this. So I got both sides of the deal. I end up with like $3,600. I come home. I got the cash. I'm all pumped up, and I just started out. I'm a young kid.
I'm
the best. They signed the lease, so it's done. This is the 25th hour. Like. The girl calls me that rented, and she says the next day her husband hates the place, and she cried to me on the phone. I call up my broker, and I'm like, dude, what do I do? He's like, you did your job. You can keep the money. I gave her the money back. She came to me. I said, you know what? I can't keep the money like this. You know what I said? I could have kept the money. I gave her the money in hopes that it's going to come back. You know what I mean? But my point is not that I'm a good guy. My point is that even after the deal's done, it's not done. Right? So I never get my hopes up until checks, even when they clear. Like, you don't even know, right?
Of course.
Especially in our business, right?
Of course, yeah.
Deals fall apart late in the game.
I mean, it's funny.
And so many people control the deal, right?
I see people in our business like,
yeah.
sign the contract.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
I don't give a shit. Yeah, nothing happened.
Like, and I actually tell people like that, because I never tell a guy who's been doing this a long time how to do his business because people have egos. But for the younger guys in the business, I'm like, bro, let me put you to the side. Do yourself a favor.
Yeah.
You just gave yourself the kiss of death.
Yep.
Don't mention anything. Don't do anything. And guys still do it. Like, you've been doing it for years, and you're high-fiving because a contract got signed. Once that contract gets signed, you know what that means? That means the process is beginning.
Yes.
When I get that deal, now you think you got a deal. The deal does not start until I get it in my hands.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So that was the stock business. By the grace of God, I made a lot of money in that business, but I hated it. I always hated it. I would have to be in the office every day at 7 a.m., Monday through Thursday. I'd work till 9 p.m., so it's a 14-hour day. Fridays, we'd leave at 4 o'clock. And every single Friday, and I did that from early 20s till I was 30 years old. I never went on a Friday night ever because I would come home on Friday, get home like 5 o'clock after taking the train home, 6 o'clock, and literally fall asleep on the couch with my clothes on.
So it's burning you out.
Completely burning me out. Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing is, I never enjoyed it. It was just something that I did for money, and especially because I had no money. You know what I mean? At first, I was like, I thought this was going to make me feel good about myself, and I have money and this and that, and the money only goes so far. When you hate what you're doing, when they say that cliche, you need to be passionate about it.
So what did you hate about it?
I just hated the fact that, it was, I would have clients where it's like, buddy, I just made you $300,000 in 2 months. And your attitude is like as if this is a casino. John, thank you for making this money, but now I'm going to ACAT my account out because you're bound to lose. You know what I mean? Like I did. So either. So
never gratitude. No
gratification. So either you lose a guy money, he's not happy. Understandable. You make a guy a lot of money, his attitude is like, this is because it was speculative. This isn't Smith Barney or Merrill Lynch. His attitude like, yo, dude, thanks for making me the money you made me, but now I'm going to take this money and put it into like a no risk something or other. So no matter what, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it was something I just never liked. I was just always very good at, and it was so lucrative. Then I'm like, how do you?
Sometimes the money, right? When you make a lot of money, it makes it a little easier to deal with.
It does. But then once you start living that lifestyle, the money, that fades quickly too. And then the thing that happened with me is I left the business, which I told you before. I left the business. I was like 29 years old, and I was like, I've been working since I'm like 11 years old, like a refugee off of, you know what I mean? And I've never done anything for myself that I wanted to do. I left the business at 29. I told you I went to acting school. I started writing screenplays because I always thought I had like an interesting story to tell, and went to Lee Strasberg acting school for like 6 months, and bartended and did all those things that a quote unquote an artist is supposed to do. And like a year into this, I'm like, what am I doing, man? Like I was going through. I remember Ice-T saying it once on an interview when he stopped being a bad guy. He was going through hustler's withdrawal. And it's like, I was going through hustlers, which were like, what am I going to do? Be a bartender? And I made $200 in tips. I'm used to making $30,000, $40,000 a month. And it's like, I'm going to be an actor. Listen, that'd be great if it works out. But, it's total luck of the draw. You could be the most talented actors in the world or waiting tables in Lower Manhattan. So I decided to get back in the business. I took my remaining money that I had, which was a nice chunk of change for me. Not for everybody. For me, it was, 6 figures I had saved and had in the stock market. I invested. And basically 2 guys that I worked with on Wall Street, prior to that, we opened our own brokerage firm. And we opened our brokerage firm, I believe, it was probably January 2001. Okay? Fast forward 9 months later, 9/11. So a lot of guys were in that business that I worked with. They made a ton of money. They burnt out, and they had Ferraris and $4,000 a month apartments, and they burnt out. They had nothing. For me, I left the business caked up. Saved every penny I made, had it invested, did everything the right way. Smart. Bronx kid, I'm not one of these kids. Right. There's no daddy I can call.
Hey, what's funny? I seen Bronx kids go into Wall Street and just forget who they were and just get caught up in the Rolexes and the thing. Create the most
Vegas.
But they were the straightest kids. Like before they left, like what I mean, talking about buying houses and this and that. Yeah. They got there and it all went out the way. It was crazy. I couldn't even believe it.
A lot of shoes and nothing to show for it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So what always drove me crazy is I was always the guy who did the right thing. I saved all my money. I invested it. I did the right thing. I got back in the business and basically took the money that I had to start that brokerage firm, and then bang, we had the tech bubble and then we had 9/11. So it was like wow. You know, it wasn't like I had a gambling problem or I had a drinking problem or I partied too much. I always did the right thing, and I still lost. And that happens in life sometimes, you know. So it was, I remember it was September, 2001, 9/11. I remember literally being on my couch for like a month. Like I didn't move. And I mean, I would never kill myself or anything like that. But I was like, wow, this is what depression is. Because I've never really been a depressed person. And I was like, wow, like people that have depression, like this is how they, like I felt that. But I also had the wherewithal in me to be like, I'm not going to let myself slide into this. But for a month, I'm like, I just got to chill. I mean, my rent at the time was $18,500. My landlord's calling me. Where's our rent? My FedEx bill was $14,000. Not to mention the five. So I was getting just all of these calls on a daily basis because all the people that I owed money to, they were wiped out too.
You know what's funny? I never thought of 9/11. You always think of the tragedy and the loss of life, but you never thought about business-wise too. A lot of people got affected, right?
Let me tell you, I've never complained about it to anybody because I thought, what a selfish.
Yeah. People are dying. I'm talking about my mom. Yeah.
And I was down there when it happened, and I'm watching people jump out of the buildings. It was horrible.
That's the least.
I never mentioned it to anybody. But at the same time,
but to think about it,
it was basically, all of my life of working, which at 30 years old, I had been working like 18 years, which is a long time. Every penny I ever made, gone.
But why? Because it was in the market.
Money was in the market. Money was tied up into my business. It just, money was basically all the money I invested in this business was just imploded overnight. And then on top of it, all of my money was in the stock market. So yeah, all gone.
Do you get this feeling as a salesperson when you realize you're good at sales that even if you lose a lot of money, I just feel like you can make it again? Is that a weird, right?
Let me tell you what I did. Bang! I got my real estate license a month later because I started day trading, but I didn't know how to day trade. So although I was a stockbroker, I was a salesman. I didn't know anything about the stock market. The way I survived was I got my real estate license and I was doing real estate in the city. And at the time, what happened was these landlords were giving deals where it's like first 2 months rent free and the landlord's paying the fee.
Because people are scared to go to 9/11 after this.
Exactly. And the government, so basically the government was paying the real estate fee. So with a real estate license that I've had for 3 weeks, I'm making 10, 12, 15 grand a month doing real estate part-time because I'm a day trader during the day. And so it was funny because I walk into these real estate offices and these realtors, and this is downtown, or like, these big, they're real estate people. They've been doing this for 8 years. Let me show you how everything works. Buddy, you don't need to show me anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, bang, and right out of the gate, I was making money again. But that's all from the training that I had as a stockbroker. So for me, exactly what you said, I've always had this, and whether it's true or not, but in my mind, I lead myself to believe that no matter what, if I had to pick up tomorrow and do something else, that I'll make a living,
right,
because of my work ethic and my sales ability.
Yes, and belief in yourself.
And my belief in myself, exactly. And I've done it already several times. So, it's easy to tell yourself you believe something,
right,
and then when you're forced to do it.
Yeah, you're proven track record.
Exactly.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. That you can fall back on.
Exactly.
So, how does it turn into the mortgage business?
So what happened was, ironically, 2 guys that I worked with on Wall Street, and they were not producers at all. They were really guys. They were nice kids, but I was like, I would burp them. They were like, kids in the business not doing well, friends of mine. Like, here's a client, take care of this guy. It's a couple $1,000, free money given to them, but I'm doing that because they're my friends, and I don't, not that I don't need it, but I got another 100 clients that I'm making a lot of money off of. So I was very good to those guys. Fast forward, hadn't seen these guys in years. One of them gives me a call. He's in the mortgage business. Like, and the funny thing is, I was going to go in the mortgage.
And this is what, a year after 9/11?
No, this is like 2006. This is several years later because I was a day trader for several years.
Did you like it?
Day trading? I had this conversation today with my buddy Doug. We were talking about it today because his son is trading. The thing about day trading, it's 100% gambling, but the thing about day trading is you could have 20 perfect days in a row. And on the 21st day, you lose all of the money that you made in those 20, plus more money.
Like gambling. Like you win 100 bets, and then the last bet you lose everything.
In the mortgage business, worst case scenario, I made $0 for a month. Day trading business, worst case scenario, I lost 30 grand this month. So for that, it was always, you could never, in my opinion, you could never have a family.
Gotcha.
Or it was just too unstable.
Yeah, it's too unstable.
And if you're a single guy doing it, great. But to get, it's just basically you're a cowboy. And it's okay. But for me, a point came in time where I'm like, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. So these 2 guys that I was friends with on Wall Street, that, they weren't big producers. They did well. They got in the mortgage business in 2001. And the guy calls me like, between the 2 of them, they're making $1 million a year. It's 2006. I go, oh my God, because I was going to get in the mortgage business, but I was like, I don't want to be a salesman anymore because I was so disgusted of everything that happened in the stock business.
Was it at the height of the real estate market, like around 2007? Prices were really high, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's when mortgage brokers were making money or not? Well,
they were making a fortune because it was all stated income deals.
Right, everybody was getting loans.
Vinny, you got a license?
Yeah, you got
a
loan.
What do you need?
Yeah.
It was like that.
But when did it stop? 2008?
2007.
2007.
Yeah, 2007, 2008.
And people actually who bought stuff in 2007 and sold and lost money because it was so
they
high.
got crushed.
Right, yeah.
Or
they were refined because no equity. They thought there was
just
arms. They had
mortgages.
arms.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Payments $3,000 a month. I can afford that. Guess what? Next month it turns into $4,000 a month. I can't afford that anymore. They bring me into the mortgage business. I tell this story all the time as well. Before they brought me in, they had an office of like 30 guys.
In Manhattan again.
And everybody's a big shot. Sales offices are the swinging dicks.
And I'm sure it's even higher in Manhattan than
of course. Everybody's a big shot of this and that. So my boys say, listen, we're bringing in this guy we used to work with on Wall Street, and this guy's a killer. And so you guys are getting lackadaisical, and this guy's going to come in and he's going to destroy all you guys. I'm like, and I didn't know this till after the fact. They didn't tell me in the beginning.
You don't want to come in like that because you're going to have a target on you.
And as soon as I walk in, like everybody's like treating me like shit and this and that, and I don't know anything about the business. They sat me in the room with this kid from Staten Island. His name was Jason, good kid. And it was him and I shared an office. I knew nothing about anything. So even how to use the computer, like how do I log into Encompass? How do I pull credit? Knew nothing. Second month in the mortgage business, I made $56,000. They're like, pfft. The second highest guy in that office probably made like $28,000. I'm in this business 60 days. I'm the number one producer for the entire company. Nobody in that office ever made that kind of money.
So you're like, this is it. I found
Bang,
I
exactly.
Yeah.
But the best part is all those guys that a month earlier that were giving me the cold shoulder. Hey man, you want to grab lunch today? And asking for advice. It was so funny. Took off in the mortgage business, didn't look back, made a ton of money, did very well. Boom, fast forward a year later, the mortgage business implodes. So I'm like, dude.
Again.
I just went from the stock market implosion to the mortgage business implosion. It was so bad that I actually left the business for like 8 months, and I was doing this thing called life settlements, which is another story for another time. I think we talked about that. But I was basically buying people's life insurance policies, selling them to hedge funds. That business imploded as well because Goldman Sachs came out with an announcement that they were no longer buying those types of instruments, and that business imploded. Then I got back into.
You kind of think you're unlucky the way it sounds, right? Remember you said.
I don't like to say the word unlucky, but ultimately I've been kicked in the balls.
Sounds like a few bad breaks.
Yeah, I've been kicked in the balls.
But I think that's
times.
what made you tough. You know what I mean? And now there's probably nothing you can't deal with, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that. I don't want to test it. But I remember one time, and I just started dating my wife, and when I got back in the mortgage business was still shaky. So it's like, even though things are starting to get better, you work for a company, they promise you this, that, the other. 3 months later, it's like, guy, everything you promised me didn't exist. I got to go to another company. And there's a point in time, and anybody in the mortgage business for an extended period of time will tell you this, that around 2008, 2009, you might go to 3 different companies within a 1-year time frame. And I remember talking to my wife, and we had just started dating at the time. And I came home, and I was like, yeah, I got to leave this place and go someplace else. This is like the 3rd place I'm leaving in 9 months. And I remember her saying to me, she goes, and her dad was a very successful businessman. And she says to me, you know what? You are a persistent motherfucker. There wasn't even an ounce of nervousness or anxiety. I mean, there was. I just didn't let her see it. And I just remember her looking at me and saying, wow, like astonished that it's like I don't even have a chink in my armor. And even though, deep inside, I'm like, what the hell's going on? But the point is, I've always been able to put on that facade. And I think if you put on that facade, like, the lie becomes the truth. If you're going to sit here and cry and things are horrible, like, things are only going to get worse. And if you're like, fuck it, man, the shit hit the fan. We got, there's 3 guys outside, Vinny, they're coming to get us. We got nowhere to go.
Yeah, we got to
give me a fucking baseball bat. You get a chip. And that's the way you got to go after it. And thank God I've had that mindset. And then fast forward, I got into the full speed ahead of the mortgage business. Did a lot of refis, made a good amount of money. Saw that the market was going to change, and decided, Tuzo, who one day comes in and said, listen, we're not buying refi leads anymore. You guys got to go out and find all purchase business. So it's like I got to go make 5 appointments because I'm not going to tell you the real estate business. You can meet 100 people. 99% of them are completely useless, incompetent, and do no business. And that's how I had to build my business in the Bronx, like one realtor at a time. And I was smart enough to being a professional salesman my entire life. I always laugh because I see my competitors, they'll throw a party and they invite 300 scrubs. And out of those 300 people, there's 4 people there that do business, but everybody's there for the free drinks and the free food. I've never done that.
Right.
But everybody I do business with.
Yeah.
And everybody I do business with is a big earner.
Right.
I would say top
and
earners.
I think good guys, too. That's
solid
what
guys.
Yes.
Solid guys.
Yes.
Like, everybody's a gentleman.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even though guys are competitors, everybody respects one
Mutual
another.
respect,
And there's a good time.
Yep.
And genuinely, we'll go out to dinner, 10, 12 guys, and it's genuinely a good time because everybody there is genuinely a good guy and respects everybody else there.
And I think they're happy for everybody else's success.
Indeed.
There's no jealousy.
There's no animosity.
Yeah,
This motherfucker.
Yeah.
And the guy who's a loser in life is the guy who has the animosity.
Right.
Yeah.
But I definitely, I noticed that about you, and your little niche of people that you work with, and they're all quality people.
Yeah,
and,
and the thing is, for me, like, there's no lying in me either. So it's like, there's people, yo, I heard you're good, I gotta send you a deal.
Right.
It's like, guy, you're a clown. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
but we hit it off the first time we talked because we worked the same way. When we did that deal together, we didn't even know each other. I think you were working with a different agent. Remember, we were laughing about the other agent through the whole deal.
The agent, we won't say
Me and
her
you were
name
talking,
yet.
right? Yeah.
Disaster.
Yeah.
And she called me with a disaster,
Right.
and I told you exactly what was going on,
Right.
the truth. Here's the problem. Here's what we got to deal. Here's how we're going to fix it. And here's why it's going to take a week and a half. And you know, the funny thing is, there's so few guys in my business, and I wouldn't say my business. I'd say our business.
Right.
You know, real estate
Yeah,
side
yeah.
too. Everybody thinks they got to come up with this amazing story and blah 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 blah. Be yourself.
Right.
Tell the truth. Something bad happens, because something bad is always going to happen.
Right.
Make that phone call immediately.
Dude, sometimes I hang up with some mortgage people, and I just ask a question, and I hang up, and I'm like, I didn't get an answer. Like, just tell me what's going on with the deal. Yeah, even if it's bad news, just tell me the truth. You know what I mean? The paper, the copy machine didn't work. Like, what are you talking about?
All bullshit. And the thing is,
you know
but they don't
and that's
get
what
it.
I said when I refer you. I'm like, listen, he's gonna tell you the truth, and we're gonna move forward if we could move forward. If not, that's it. That's what I like. That's what you know what I mean?
I mean, it's funny because there really is a simple strategy, but
Yeah,
in this
honestly.
business, it seems like I'm an honest, straightforward guy, and it just seems though. But you know, it's just shocking to me that
There's
most
a
people
few simple strategies. Niceness too. People don't understand
be
being nice
good,
and courteous.
exactly.
You're right.
Hello,
Say thank you.
please.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I mean, it's real simple stuff. But I think, you know, it's funny because I've read like every book on success and sales, and stuff, and after I've done all of that, I just made my own little approach, which is me. And I think there's so many people trying to follow a formula that has nothing to do with their personality.
Exactly.
They saw one thing in a Grant Cardone book, and like, guy, what are you talking? Like the deal is sold. Stop talking. But they insist because they think they're the sophisticated salesman, and they've mastered this and they've mastered that, and it's embarrassing. You know, they hurt themselves. And those are the same guys. If you try to correct them or give, it's like they get insulted. You know, so you can't help those guys.
Exactly. So, as far as the mortgage business, what do you think have been like some of your toughest obstacles? I mean, it sounds like you hit it running, so I don't know if there was really.
No, I mean, there's always obstacles. What it is I would say the toughest thing in my business is the dishonest competitors that just straight up lie. And there's a lot of them. You know, I can't tell you how many people I speak to on a daily basis. Says, John, I know you told me it's going to be 5%, but I got a guy telling me 4.5%. It doesn't exist. Or, you know, you have to do this as an investment property, Mr. Jones, because you already own it. No, well, another guy says we don't have to do it that way. And what happens in my business is there's just so much trickery and dishonesty that somebody's going to tell you what you want to hear, get you close to the finish line, and then give the bad news to you at the finish line and hope you close. I would never do that because now I'm risking your livelihood. You're saying, John, or let me give you a deal which is giving me the ability to feed my family. I'm going to tell the client right from the get-go, here's our problem, here's how we solve it, here's what we're going to run into. Most people won't do that. They'll tell the guy what he wants to hear because they're scared that they're going to lose the deal because, you know, there's a lot of weak salesmen, and weak salesmen tell lies. Strong salesmen tell the truth. If I don't get the deal, I don't get the deal. I got another 10 deals right behind it. You know?
But I don't even look at that as a problem because how many times are they going to do that to somebody before they won't use them again? You know what I mean? You can only burn somebody once, right? So I like these dishonest people in the business because that helps out guys like us, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. The scary thing, though, is like, I don't know how these guys haven't figured that out.
Yeah. It seems to take longer than it should.
And the other thing is, like, you see certain agents with certain relationships with certain bankers, and it's like, but they're both bottom of the barrel, you know? And it's like, so they're made for each other. You know, it's like that girl who only dates abusive guys. You know, it's like some people are prone to these types of bad relationships.
You're right.
You're right. It's like an addictive quality of theirs.
So, is there anything you would say to someone starting out, getting into the business now? Any advice for them? Or, I mean, obviously you got to be persistent.
I mean, I would give them the same advice for this business I would give any business. You know, it's always going to be more difficult than you think it's going to be, and you know, and it's really simple, cliche, but you know, be the hardest working. You know, no matter what you do, you will be successful as long as you are extremely hardworking guy. I mean, it's simple, and I know it's cliche, but it's the truth. You know, I've had a lot of. I've been KO'd quite a few times, and by the grace of God, you know, I just, you know, like, you know, again, getting back to this year could have been a tragedy for me, could have been horrific, but you know, I had this conversation with another realtor at dinner a couple of weeks ago. I came out January 1 like a banshee, wild man, on fire, 150 miles an hour. No, well, it's January and things are slow. Let me ease into it. Oh, it's February. I'll get going in March. Nothing like that. 100 miles an hour, and thank God I did because. You know, what happened over the last few months, being in the hospital for nearly a month, so on and so forth. I still had a great year. And I would not have had a great year if I didn't come out of the gates swinging. And I say to everybody, never take your foot off the gas pedal because you don't know when you're going to have a setback. But on top of that, never take your foot off the gas pedal because there's also times where I'm going 100 miles an hour and then I get a little bit of luck. And it's like, and that's how you exponentially increase. That's how you go from making 150 grand a year to bang, I made 400. Wow,
right.
Because you did what you're supposed to
do. I find the most talent and the more effort, the more luck
of course.
You get, right?
Basketball.
Yeah,
If you're a guy who
exactly.
shoots 15 points consistently a night, you work, boom, one night you're here for 40. Wow, and it seemed easy. And it's because everything gelled for you.
People on the side, people said as if me too, you're lucky, right? They don't see the work you're putting in. People can say that because they don't know what you're right. You know what I mean?
I had this conversation again today with my buddy Doug, who and it's like luck.
Yeah,
Guy,
good luck. I've been looking for deals for fucking 6 months.
I
Now I found something and I made a little money.
Exactly.
Because
not to mention the 10 years of experience to figure out what a good deal is.
And the stuff that I went through that wasn't good.
Of course.
Yes.
Wow, he stepped in shit and he made a quick $75,000.
Yeah.
Stepped in shit, 20 years worth of stepping in shit to find it. But that's a loser mentality because any guy who's smart, who's a business person, he knows that overnight success took 15 years.
That's right. Any successful business, I say this all the time. People see the business now, whether it's a pizzeria or a jewelry store, a realtor. Oh, this guy's lucky, dude. Someone busted their ass for a long time. Even if now he's not putting in that many hours, because he did it at the beginning.
And now he's got a well-oiled machine that he created.
There was sacrifice.
Yeah.
There's no tricks.
There's no. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Exactly.
It's like the gym. Who wouldn't want to be jacked?
Yes.
Oh, I can just take a pill every day and I'll be in tip-top shape. If that was the case, everybody would do it. Everybody would be rich. I always say it's very simple. It's just not easy. Simple. Get up early every day, work your balls off, find out whoever the most successful guy is in your particular business. Figure out what he's doing, pick his brain, and work harder than him. And guess what? In 3 or 4 years, you'll be successful. Do
you believe in having a mentor? A lot of people I've had on the show talk about a mentor and how they played a part.
Of course. I had them in the stock business. I really didn't have one in the mortgage business. The thing about the stock business, though, I always think like that life that I lived for that long, I always use this analogy. It would basically be like I tell this to George all the time because he's an ex-cop. Is like you have 2 security guards in Target. One is the head of security. He's been there for 15 years. And another guy's a Green Beret that just retired and says he's going to work part-time in Target for a couple of days. It's like the mortgage business to me is like it's like a guy who's, you're a good salesman, but it's like I'm a Navy SEAL. Not to sound cocky, but I watch so many young guys in their 20s making millions. And it's not even like any one of them ever sat me down and said, "Hey kid, let me take you under my wing," and shit. Not one of them did. As a matter of fact, they did just the opposite. So you kind of had to be that guy who, and that's a Bronx thing as well. Like I can see I can see what this guy is doing and soak in the good stuff and get rid of the bad stuff. But I just watched people that were very, very successful, watch what they did, emulated them. Not one of them really had the time to sit down. I was watching an interview with Brett Favre and who's the quarterback now for Green Bay?
Aaron Rodgers. And
Brett Favre did nothing for Aaron Rodgers. If anything, he tried to hamper him because he knew he was going to take his spot. Yeah. And so the way Aaron Rodgers figured it all out is you got to emulate that guy who's trying to do things to basically set you back, because that's how it was in the stock business as well. Like I work for you now, but you know that if you teach me too much, that the tables are going to turn.
Right.
And so a lot of times in the sales business, you see that as well. You have a guy who's willing to train you until you become too successful, and he's like, "Oh shit, how do I slow this guy down? I need to keep him underneath me so I can continue to make money off of him."
Right.
So that I ran into a lot of that. So for me, it was always, I learned a lot from just people's mistakes, what not to do. This guy made a shitload of money, but he's a degenerate gambler. This guy made a shitload of money, but he thinks he's a big shot. He's out in a nightclub 3 times a week. So a lot of my, I wouldn't say I had any mentors, but I had a lot of people that I could learn from what to do and what not to do, which is even more important sometimes.
That's great advice for anybody listening out there. Learn from other people's mistakes.
No doubt. That's true. Absolutely.
And of course, make a few of
listen, you're gonna make them yourself. But if you have a friend who did X, Y, and Z and imploded, and if you do the same thing, then you're just a moron.
Exactly. So, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you have that?
It's funny because when we were kids, members always, "What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan?" And again, in this day and age, 5 months from now is like 5 years when we were kids.
Right.
And so my plan is to become an investor, to keep doing what I'm doing, just same thing you're doing, and trying to find a couple of deals along the way for myself, tuck them under my belt. But ultimately, I think I'm going to be in the same business. I hope I'm in the same business. The only way I'm not in this business is if something crazy happens and I'm forced to leave, which I hope doesn't happen. But if it does, I'm prepared for it because I've reinvented myself several times in my lifetime. But in a perfect world, I'll have my office in the Bronx. I'll still be doing a ton of business. and I'll own a couple of investment properties and set myself up.
Sounds good. I wish you continued success. Anybody looking to get a mortgage, first-time home buyers or investors, Mr. John Kelly is definitely someone to get in touch with. Definitely help you out. Before we go, though, I got to ask you a couple of questions. I know you know about my show. I got to ask you your favorite NBA player, your favorite rapper, and your favorite rap album.
Michael Jordan.
Okay.
Biggie Smalls. I'm not sure the name of the album was Biggie's first album.
Ready to Die. Ready to Die.
There you go.
Love it. Michael Jordan, of course, the greatest player ever. I'm a Bird guy, but I still know Jordan's the best ever. I can admit that.
As an Irishman,
I get upset with these,
number 2.
I get upset with these LeBron comparisons. I can't even.
It shouldn't even be in the same sentence. It's disgusting. That's the young Bucks. They don't know.
And I can't fight the Biggie one either. It's a Biggie.
Is Biggie yours as well? Or Nas?
You know what? Who is? That's a great question. Biggie's definitely one of them. I like some old school. I like Rakim and KRS-One. I'm like KRS-One was a big Bronx guy. I ain't no joke. Rakim. I'm like big.
Love those guys too.
Yes. So I love the Beastie Boys too. But thanks for coming by, brother. Much continued success, my man.
Thank you for having me, brother.
Anytime.
2019, great things.
Yes.
Be well.
Yes.
Take care.